Hello and welcome to PoisoNoisE once again. Today we will talk about three bands, and I will start with a band from Norway, which is not the band you think of spontaneously when you think about extreme metal from Norway in the early to mid 90s. This is a band that played death metal, and this is really deep, cavernous. If you like incantation, you might like a lot a band called Molested. So here I am presenting you a band that actually had quite a weird style when it comes to death metal. So yes, in a way you can trace an influence from bands like Incantation, but at the same time there is this vibe of early Immortal, even Mayhem at some point, and this is blasting, cavernous, heavy, and totally bleak. And the band released only two demos, one album, and one mini. So this is the album from 95, something like this. No, 94, and this is the mini from 95, Stormvold, which is amazing. And on this version, we are lucky to have actually the two demos made by the band prior to these more official releases. This is quite amazing when you listen to this sound. There is also on the album the use of a mouth harp at some point, and even Hardangerfjell, which is a folkloric instrument used widely in Norwegian folk music. So they started to blend their more local or regional music inputs into this version of a very, very dark and brutal death metal. It really sounds like nothing else, I must say, and I find this band quite fascinating. In the end, they did not put out so many records, which is maybe a good thing because, with everything they released, you already understood anything they wanted to say. So after that, the members started to be involved in other bands, which are completely irrelevant and not interesting to me. I think of bands like Ancient, those silly vampire cosplayers sounding like Cradle of Shit, awful, and also Boknagar. So I know a lot of people like Boknagar. I find it boring and soulless. So it's always amazing to see people into bands like Molested able to come up with music that is so different after that, and that really does not inspire me at all. But I'm glad that they did this at last, because this is a band I come back to on a quite regular basis, I must say. Now, let's skip to something completely different. Let's go to Turkey, where in the early 70s was released an album by Erkin Koray. So this guy is really important when it comes to music from Turkey, because he's considered to be the first to bring rock in Turkey at the end of the 50s, early 60s, and he was also stabbed back at the end of the 60s because he was growing his hair, and it was not really well accepted socially at that time, but he kept growing his hair nonetheless. Still, musically, it's quite interesting because starting with fuzzy rock guitars and covers of Elvis Presley, he later on started to move toward psychedelia. So this is really psychedelic rock, but he also was clever enough to make it his own, and he blended this psychedelic rock with what is known as arabesque. Arabesque is a style of Turkish music which is very melancholic and using traditional instrument. And he got to mix the Western psychedelia with the more Turkish grounded music vibe. And this is actually very cool because you can listen to this very, very good album full of bonus tracks, as you can see here. And actually, it's been released in 1973, and it's the first important release by Erkin Koray, and he kept on releasing albums on a very regular basis. I'm not familiar with everything he has released so far, but I know he disappeared in 2023, sadly. But still, his legacy lives on because if you talk to Turkish people, Erkin Koray is a name that is really well known and established. And to give you an idea, maybe you heard about this Turkish band called Altin Gün, which is really famous nowadays, and they also blend psychedelia with other more Turkish influences, and they even covered some songs by Erkin Koray. So he really is a blueprint for a lot of modern Turkish music exploring psychedelia and rock, at least. So very interesting person and very interesting record. I advise you to check it out. And I'd like to finish this little video with something else. Back to death metal, and with a band I actually like a lot. I hereby introduce you to tada, Necrovation. This is nice because this is my artwork. I drew this back in the days because it's been released a long, long time ago. I remember I was maybe still a student at that time, but still, it's a very great band that sadly has not released that much albums in the end. It's been years since the band is quite silent, sadly, but Necrovation was a very intriguing band because if you remember back in the very early 2000s from Sweden, you had bands like Repugnant and Kaamos, which uh, laid the basis for the new death metal generation to come. And just after Repugnant and Kaamos, some bands started to show up, and Necrovation was one of these bands. They were really at the forefront of this new death metal boom that happened at the time, where the thing was not only to be entombed or dismembered copycat, just like many bands used to do back in the days. They started to bring more darkness into the death metal, and it was a very, very good band, very eager to bite you, I must say. And I was really, really happy to discover them through their first demo, and even before Necrovation, because they had a band called Das Über Evils, which was more of a funny project compared to Necrovation. And I was lucky enough to be asked by Seb, their singer and guitarist, to draw the cover for this little EP, which is now considered kind of a cult. And I was also asked to do some artwork. I'm not most proud of that anyway, but this is a split that Necrovation did with Corrupt. Corrupt, which you might not really know of because they have not released that many stuff, but it's composed of people who later went to form Enforcer, which is actually much more established right now. But yeah, this is a nice split EP where they cover My Dark Subconscious of Morbid for Necrovation, and Curse of the Pharaoh by Merciful Fate for Corrupt. And yeah, I'm pretty glad I could give my input into this new breed of death metal in Sweden. And later on, they released also this EP, and after that they have at least two albums, but as I say, the band is quite quiet or not really active anymore. They have appeared once in a while at some concerts or festival, but it's not like it's such a serious band any longer, which is a pity because they really had something going on, and the more they matured, the more they brought great death metal on the table. So I guess that's it for today. I wish you discovered some old or new stuff for you once again, and take care until next time. Peace.